Well, don't look now, folks, but we got a jobs boom going on. But the flip side is it's a temporary jobs boom. I know they say that any job is better than no job, but are these kind of jobs what we really want for a lasting recovery? We got Dee Benke joining us. We've got Guy Benson joining us, Rick Unger joining us. Dee, you first. What do you think?
Well, I think Rick Unger really would prefer to work in retail and sell dresses, but it's probably not the best job.
He is sartorially splendid.
But yeah, temporary jobs, it's tough because you don't have the benefits, you don't have the schedule, and plus you don't have the ownership in the job. You're always going to do a better job if you belong to a company, so it is a problem.
Why are they having all these temp jobs? I would argue because employers figure better temporary workers than full-time workers we have to pay benefits.
Well, let me first say for the record, I have sold women's shoes very successfully.
Oh my.
You know,
I think you should know that.
There was something going on there.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Okay, look, I actually think this is better news than it might readily appear. There's no getting around the fact we're coming out of the worst recession since the Great Depression. There's also no getting around the fact we've gone through a long era of jobs being shipped overseas. Good news is, A, the economy is improving, jobs should come with it. But more interesting to me, I think we're seeing a situation where employers are starting to see the benefits of bringing jobs home. We shouldn't be surprised if they're putting their toe in the water, starting with temp work to see how it works out. If it works, if they were right, watch those turn into full-time jobs. Same as the economy gets better, understandable, an employer might want to slowly bring in part-time work. Life keeps improving, they'll make them full-time. I think this is all good.
Guy, what about you?
Well, any time an American gets a job, that's something we should all celebrate, especially considering that the job picture has been so sluggish for so long, and it still is, by the way. 7.6% unemployment would be in the double digits if we were at the same workforce participation rate as we were before the recession, and all that stuff. The U6 number getting ugly again last month. But in this particular case, if you're looking at temporary workers and trying to figure out why is that, why is the improvement largely in that area? I know we're going to revisit the subject later on in the show, Neil, but Obamacare, we now have
had no idea. But go ahead.
we have
shock.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have an extra year now of uncertainty because part of this thing has been delayed, the employer mandate for medium and large-sized businesses. So a lot of people are wondering, gosh, are we going to keep these hiring freezes in place, for instance, and people aren't willing, if you're an employer, to commit to a full-time or even necessarily a part-time worker. You'll hedge your bets with temp workers and see where Obamacare heads, and it's not looking pretty.
It would be a safe strategy. I mean, even if you think the whole thing is going to work out, to Rick's point, and you're confident that it will.
He's wrong.
Why? Well, of course he's wrong. But I mean, in all seriousness, why would you go out on a limb and hire a bunch of full-time folks for whom you're obligated?
If you
big
need
time?
them.
Look, you can't know. It's the magical medical mystery tour that we're on. None of these employers, they don't know what's going to happen, so you have to hire the temporary workers, and it's very bad.
And they were around long before you were born.
Truly. You know, this always amazes me. Everybody wants to get all politics out and come up with all these reasons why people hire or they don't hire. You know why people hire people? They need more man hours at work. If you're not selling your products, you're not going to hire people to make them.
And if you
are selling them,
that's why they're not hiring.
When you need them, you hire them. Exactly. We're on that way. You know, sometimes people just don't want to take good news for what it is.
It's not good news.
It is
it's Obamacare. News. People are afraid to hire. They don't know what's going to happen. So it has everything to do with it.
I think Obamacare is responsible for my stubbing my toe this morning. You guys make Obamacare responsible for everything.
I totally agree.
But you know, Guy, in all seriousness, do you think that now the direction that we're getting on this hiring is that, yes, to Rick's point, the economy is obviously picking up enough that these guys do feel confident to hire, but they're being cautious in their hiring plans, which is also a reflection, maybe not of healthcare, but not quite sure whether this recovery holds. What do you say?
Exactly. There's a sense of uncertainty and wait and see. We are in no way entering some giant jobs boom. There are a lot of people who are very worried and still sort of standing off on the sidelines. They're not sure where this country's headed next. And I mean, Rick can say that it has nothing to do with Obamacare, but that doesn't make any sense just in terms of common sense. But it also isn't reflected when you look at polling of business owners and small businesses. They have said 41%, according to Gallup, of small business owners have frozen hiring. And a lot of those business owners tell pollsters it is because of the health care law. You cannot get around that. It's not political. It's reality.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
I think it's nonsense. I truly do. People hire people. Actually, what you said actually, strangely, made a little bit more sense. I can understand people being, well, you know, it's what I'm here for. What I'm here for.
Yeah.
If you didn't go with that shoes crack, I might have been.
You know, you're exactly right. I had it coming. I had it coming. Yes.
So,
but who wants crummy part-time jobs? Nobody. That's not good news.
It's not about that. People hire when they need people. It's got nothing to do with Obamacare. I'll tell you what. If 2 years from today, if people are laying people off when business is good because they don't want to deal with Obamacare, I'll listen to what you're saying.
Okay, then it's the crummy Obama economy.
When they need them.
It's a crummy Obama economy. You're right. You're exactly right.
How
Bad
can
economy
it be an Obamacare economy? It hasn't even kicked in yet.
Well, you're right. It hasn't kicked in. What, we're 5 years in and it's still bad. You're exactly right.
I'm sorry, but Obamacare is not the cause. Even if Obamacare is the terrible thing you'd like it to be.
I think you're the cause.
I could be the cause.
Don't attempt to adjust the TV. Neil didn't want to deal with these next 2 or 3 people because of all the rowdiness. Because of all the rowdiness earlier in the show. And by the way, he's going to be on early vacation, so you'll get used to seeing me for the next couple of weeks. Now, let's talk about this. The healthcare law. It's imploding. All of this really means that, well, when you're going to pay for it, it might start to wither away. Here's the thing. Already we see younger workers that they're not signing up for it. Low-wage workers, well, they're not ponying up for it. Even the uninsured, they're not taking it up. And now employers push back a year on enlisting up. So where to get all the dough? If you're going to have a law, well, costs are spiraling out of control. How do you even pay for it? They're back. Dee, Rick, and Guy. Guy, let's start with you.
Well, there's the question, well, are they going to raise taxes more to pay for this? And Harry Reid just a few weeks ago said we need more money for Obamacare because $2 trillion apparently wasn't enough. And Republicans on Capitol Hill rightfully pretty much just laughed in his face. That's not happening short term. But in the long term, this is the real problem, Charles. One of the most disturbing things that the administration has done is they have effectively waived for at least a year the verification elements to make sure that people who apply for these expensive subsidies in Obamacare actually qualify for them. And as a result, you're going to get a lot of fraud and abuse. Their goal is to act as a magnet, get as many people onto government health care as possible, reliant on the government for their health care, because their long play here is single-payer, government-run health care. And if that comes, then say goodbye to American health care exceptionalism and say hello to a rainstorm of new taxes.
You got to admit, though, Rick, he's got some. He makes some points here.
A lot of weird stuff in there.
Listen, he makes some pretty great points. You could already go down to Social Security and say, you know, this economy is so bad. I need a disability check, and you could be 26 years old, strapping, strong, healthy, and they'll pay you not to sit on a porch all day. I mean, we're going down that path, but this is exponentially worse. This is going to be the unmitigated disaster of all disasters.
Can I say something?
Are you willing to admit it now?
No, I don't think so. The first clue that somebody is being foolishly doctrinaire is when they start with the American healthcare exceptionalism. We have great healthcare here. We do. But guess what? There are other countries with great health care. There are other countries who have better results than we do. I wouldn't trade ours. I'm very happy with my health care.
But you just had to get one
hang on, so you think it is acceptable?
What I have to do is say, guys, this is never going to go anywhere if we don't stop with this nonsense and have a serious conversation.
Let's have a serious conversation.
Actually, Guy said something that was right.
Okay.
Let's talk about this because it is serious.
Said a couple things that are right.
No, you actually said one thing that was right, and that was that we are waiving the process of checking people to see if they qualify. He's right about that. We shouldn't be doing that. I think that's a big mistake.
Well, what about paying for this?
I do have more faith in
what about paying for this? I mean, because penalties against employers, that was going to be like $8 to $10 billion. All these other penalties, they budgeted for this money to come in.
Yeah, they did.
Right.
They did.
So where do you pay for them? Where do you get the money from?
I mean, basically, look, one thing we can all agree on, we can take the tax question off the table because there's not a chance in hell that the House is ever going to allow a new tax to pay for more of Obamacare. So Guy's right about two things, Guy. You're right about two things.
Hey, the list keeps growing.
That's not going to happen. So there's not going to be any more taxes. What I don't understand is there's no pleasing you guys. You didn't want this to go into effect. You've got companies like Walmart that are pushing all of their employees onto my taxpayer nickel. I have to pay Medicaid because they won't do their part.
No, but Rick, what are you talking about?
You didn't want want it. You didn't want it. And now when it gets delayed a year, now you want to get angry about that. I know what you really want is for it to go away. It's not going away.
This is a disaster. It needs to go away. We need to repeal Obamacare. This is not the American way.
Not going to happen.
Americans should not be forced to take anything.
Right.
And you know what?
Great. Terrific.
Now listen, they're rebelling. They're Democrats too, because they know that they're going to lose their elections in midterm because it's so unpopular.
And
so
yet,
guess what? They're playing politics.
And
Obama
yet,
knows.
it's not going
Obama
away.
knows that it is a very bad deal now. So let's just push it back.
When are we going to get real?
Let's push back politically because it's terrible policy. Yeah. Everyone knows it now. We need to get rid of it.
Wonderful.
Disaster.
When are we going to have a serious conversation? It's not going away.
Okay, listen.
You don't know that.
Yes, we do.
It won't.
Democrats
it's
aren't
a president's signature achievement, and I've heard Democrats say it's right up there with the Emancipation Proclamation and the Bill of Rights. So you're right. The president won't allow it to go away. But it is, Guy.
So we have to get rid of the president before that goes away.
It's falling apart right before our very eyes, though, Guy.
It's not working.
It hasn't even started yet.
It won't start. They're pushing it back because it's a disaster.
So you
it's not
think
working.
it's never going to happen, right?
Let's hope not. Let's make sure it gets repealed because it's not working.
Okay, let's do this. A pipe and a pancake, a Benson, and a. There's just no pleasing. I'll pick up from where Rick left off. But Guy, okay, we know that the Democrats aren't going to necessarily abandon it, but certainly they're taking it apart piece by piece. And to me, it's something of a mea culpa of what they just did recently by saying, you know what, this part of it doesn't work. Maybe other parts don't work.
Hey, Rick, I believe the question was directed to me in this case. So if the Democrats, I'm just going to reclaim my time, as they say in the Senate. But here's the thing, and Charles, you're absolutely right. If Democrats want to vote against a verification enforcement mechanism and say that, hey, we have to actually follow the law, make sure people who are getting these subsidies are actually eligible, they need to explain why they would vote against that. They've already voted for it. It's in the law. The president's waived it. Why is that? And by the way, if we're giving this one-year waiver to big businesses that have all sorts of, lobbyists and that sort of thing, why won't they give it to individuals and to small businesses?
Guy, I'm glad you brought that up because, Rick, I got to tell you something. A lot of people said, okay, the president made a pretty smart political move to push this back, but the individual out there, they, even with the subsidy that they don't need ID for, a lot of people are going to be hit and dinged pretty hard, while employers aren't paying. And they're wondering, then why, again, does this big crowning achievement fall on the individual shoulders to pay for?
Did you by any chance hear what Bob Wolf had to say 2 segments ago? Because he got it exactly right. We're talking about a massive piece of legislation. What amazes me is so many of the arguments that I hear are precisely what you heard when Medicare and Social Security went in. And what happened with those? They were often modified in Congress. As we put it into play.
Were they modified before they even implemented?
Well, no, but neither was this. As much as you might want to say it was delayed, one segment for a year.
Delayed, modified,
but
3 segments.
Let me get this in because the fantasy stuff gets irritating. Nothing has been modified in the law. It was delayed a year. In your mind, is that a change in the law?
It's a failure. It's a failure. It's a huge failure.
Well, we'll go with the silly stuff.
And you know what? The Democrats don't want it because in the midterm, they're all going to lose. I never knew you could have a
failure before it happens.
They're all going to lose because it's unpopular now, and that's why they're pushing it back. They're playing politics with bad policy.
Didi, you starting a business next year? It's a failure. Even though it hasn't started yet. It's a failure.
Mine won't be a failure.
Hold on a second. But, hey, Guy, real quick, I just need to say, we've seen things delayed before and delayed 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I mean, the doctor fix is, I think, on its 26th year of being pushed down the road, kicking the can down the road.
Congress does that, though.
So here we have the president, by the way, who changed his own law. How rare does that happen? There's something wrong here, and at some point, I think the White House is probably going to have to deal with even their own party with this.
And by the way, Rick is wrong that there's been no part of the law modified. Another thing that they've delayed for a year is the small business exchange, which was going to be a whole panoply of options for people to choose from in small businesses. That's been reduced down to one option, starting in 2015 rather than 2014, which the law requires. He keeps demanding a serious conversation. Democrats are 100% responsible for this law, everything in it, and everything going wrong with it is on their plate. Sorry.
But I'll gladly take responsibility, but I have a very hard time with how you define modification. I think even people who agree with you would have a very hard time with how you define modification. Delay is not modification. There's actually been one.
Would you agree?
I just explained it's a delay and change.
Maybe defeat, because that's what it feels like right now.
It's defeat. What a silly thing.
All right, guys, I'll tell you what. We had a quasi serious conversation. Everyone at home, thanks for indulging us. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow night.